Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited because I love live people. It's a different energy.
Yeah.
That's why I brought Aaron. I was getting bored by myself, and this guy's energy is amazing. We're hoping that we can hit some very, very basic points about supplementation, about soil depletion, and just why would you even take a supplement. But the whole thing here is that we do these workshops because we know that our patients need the truth. They need information that will help them live a healthier, livelier life. But just a quick little introduction. Aaron you grew up in this area, right?
Yeah.
I think you moved out of this area. You worked for supplement companies.
Yep.
You're a chemist,
Yeah.
nutritionist, and now you have your own supplement. He lives and breathes how to help the body heal naturally, like in nutrition and other things. But I can tell his passion. I said, you guys need to at least know what he's been digging into. So if you don't mind, I'd say go ahead and take the floor.
It's great to be here, thank you. I was really excited to get the invitation and just to cross paths with you. And so my very narrow field of vision over the past 21 years now has been in nutrition and how we can optimize the body in each one of our cells as far as holism, like Dr. Nate's talking about. And naturally that led me to work with other nutraceutical firms and R&D departments, and all of that kind of coalesced into where we are today. And the reason for Biogenesis, this is our very small brand here in Canton, Ohio. And the reason behind it was because 3 years ago, give or take, I found out my wife was pregnant. What I wanted to do was basically just compile everything that I have learned over the past couple decades and come out with one phenomenal, functional, targeted nutrition product that was as good for the mother as it was for Eve, is my daughter's name. But at that point in time, the developing baby in those early days and weeks of that first trimester. So with ThinkSync Plus, this is ultimately what it became. In those very early days 3 years ago during the iterating process and the formulation, the minerals and the essential vitamins and nutrients in here are able to effectively cross the placenta barrier and actually provide that nourishment to both the mother and the baby through the umbilicus. So that has been wonderful. And what I always try to follow up with is, although it's not only safe but crucial during those early developing months and years of a child's life, it's just as applicable to an elite athlete or an 80-year-old retiree in the twilight years of their life. So that's in a nutshell what Biogenesis is. We're a local formulation laboratory, and it's been the passion of my life. I do have a quick presentation. It's 3 slides, so it's pretty cursory, but it really drives home the point of why we do what we do at Biogenesis and why it is so vital that we supplement. I think in our mind's eye, a lot of times we think supplementation is to fill the gaps. It's some things that we should do because once our diet is perfect. Well, the reality is, as we'll show in some of the soil samples and studies they've done over the past 50 years, the food that we eat is no longer the same. It's vastly different than our parents and grandparents.
We know that a plant or any kind of a garden, if you're trying to grow something, it's the soil that's going to give it the strength. It's not
Right.
It's not the weeds it's how do you keep the soil strong? So what did you find out? What was the things that you found out during the research?
Well, it was shocking. I knew that our soil had been depleted, and when I first started the research a couple years ago, just at like a surface level zoomed out view, you can do a quick Google search and you can see 60, 70, 80% of this precipitous fall in the micronutrient content, even the bacterial flora, a lot of those microorganisms that we need are no longer present in any visible amounts in the soil. So now it's far, far worse than that. And it's not overstating it to say that it's truly an epidemic. What I mean by that is not only are we missing those critical nutrients like zinc or magnesium, some of those minerals that are involved in all of our cellular processes, but to go beyond that, farmers, especially here domestically across North America, they're so compelled and obsessed with crop yield that they're not even putting back in the phosphorus, the calcium, the nitrogen back into the soil from one harvest season to the next. And so the best way that I've been able to describe this to people that I'm fortunate enough to speak with is that we have dead soil which produces dead fruit and vegetables. And the reality is, and I hate giving people bad news, that same ear of corn or that same head of lettuce and so on and so forth, as we're trying to make right decisions for ourselves and for our family and children, we're not getting the same nutrient yield from those foods, so we can be doing all the right things as far as the textbook practices of healthy eating and still feel throttled down, get sick a little bit more, have that chronic inflammation where our knees always hurt, we don't know what's going on. And to kind of wrap up that thought, it's my belief, based on all the people I've been able to speak with and observe over the years, that we've kind of just forfeited to the hands of time. We've kind of thrown our hands up in the air and said, said, well, I'm getting older and that's just how things go. But it doesn't have to be like that. And that's kind of the mission that we're on.
What would you say kind of contributed the most to the depletion of the soil? Like what kind of farming practices tend to lead to that the most?
Whenever you look at the farming industry, especially here domestically, what ends up happening is that the pennies and the profits, as farmers often say, they can sell an ear of corn and they can make 1 or 2 pennies on that. But if they're harvesting 300-400 acres, that's where the real money is. And so they're incentivized to produce as much as they can from the soil that they have. And when you look at the bottom line, like any business that you run, it doesn't matter if you're developing software or if you're raising livestock, that bottom line is, what's our profit yield going to be? And should we spend another $50,000 replenishing our soil regeneratively with a lot of those minerals and phytonutrients? And the answer is often no.
If something's organic,
yes.
does that mean that the soil's healthy?
It's usually a great indicator. When something is organic, it means that they have to pass certain guidelines set by the FDA. And for example, my wife and I, every Wednesday, so tomorrow morning, we're gonna take our 2-year-old, we're gonna drive to a farm in East Sparta, we're gonna get raw milk, we're gonna get eggs before they've even been washed. And he often tells us he gets biannual reports and surprise visits from the USDA to maintain his organic license. And the term organic also means not only what's in the soil, but what's not. And so I think that we're all familiar with GMO just as a phrase, but when you really get deeper into that, it's pretty nefarious when you think about what that actually means. And it just means that they have manipulated the food supply from the seed itself to be a patented commodity. And because of that, it's resistant to a lot of these pesticides that have even recently in the news been linked to, and it's been a proven causation for cancer development. So you don't have to worry about all those things with organic. So to answer your question, it doesn't necessarily mean the farmer's following all those best practices, but he's certainly not putting those poisons into the soil that can cause those deleterious effects with your family.
What's the difference between a whole food supplement and a supplement that would, synthetic, I guess would be the term that I would use for that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I always lean on, because we're so familiar with it at large, is pharmaceuticals. Those are actually petroleum-based, and that's where we get synthetics from. So petroleum acting as the base molecule, you can synthesize many, many things from that. It's the same exact thing in parallel with that when you're looking at, let's say, a vitamin D3. You can have a natural vitamin D3 that is derived from lamb's wool or lichen, and that is a completely natural bioavailable source of the D3. However, you can go the opposite direction and you can synthesize cholecalciferol, which is the synthetic vitamin D3. To go over and above that, something that I'm very, very big on is cofactors. So the cofactors is basically what your body uses as that transport mechanism. That's kind of like the modem in your body that is able to take that signal and then transfer it to where it needs to go. With vitamin D3 specifically, the cofactor for that would be vitamin K2, or in its official whole food form, MK7. And so what that does is the K2 takes the D3 and puts it into the cell. I know a lot of this is just a lot of letters and numbers and it sounds like it's jumbled together, but that is very important because one of the things that I often highlight, I don't shy away from, is vitamin D3 is the main ingredient in rat poison. And the reason being isn't because it's unhealthy, it's just because they are giving massive amounts to these mice without the cofactor that we were talking about earlier. And so now that circulating vitamin D3 doesn't have anywhere to go. So what it does is it builds up in the soft tissues of the arteries. Your body can't process nutrients or water. And so what happens with rats when they die, if you have a pest control company come out to your house, they're just dehydrating to death. That's all it is. But if you put the D3 where it's supposed to go, you notice an extreme increase in your overall health. If you're looking at the blue bar graph, the higher the worse is basically how that reads. So along the x-axis, for example, you're looking at zinc here. This also does happen to be the highest deficient nutrient from the soil supply. And as a matter of fact, there's a pretty wide berth to some of the studies that have come out, but they have identified in a lot of the crops in agriculture an 85% depletion from the original records they used to keep dating back to 1956. So in the bottom left-hand corner, there's something called a key impact. And it says a landmark study found that you would need to eat 8 oranges today, right now at the grocery store, to get the same amount that our grandparents, just 2 generations removed, were able to get from 1 orange.
There's a sense that I, as a chiropractor, am seeing your body react to all kinds of stressors. and react to the positive things you do for it. The things you eat, the exercise you do. But when there's a net total that's negative, we start to feel tension and inflammation, and it builds up.
Right.
So if there's areas that we're working on that are chronic, that are consistent, that there's just this level, this ceiling of improvement, know that even if you're eating healthy or trying to eat well, there's a chance that you're not even getting the nutrients your body needs. It can be complicated, but we're trying to boil this down as starting to eat the right way is important. So what's next? What was the other things? I know you put some slides together. What are some of the things that you wanted to make sure you kind of talked about? Yeah, cellular stuff probably would be huge.
The micronutrient crisis, it's all integrated. It all works hand in hand. And something that you spoke on, but it's definitely worth pausing at, is the fact that he was talking about carrots. And when we're thinking of vitamin A or beta carotene as the most important part of that carrot, that's kind of just a headliner. It gets a lot of the credit and the notoriety because that is the vitamin molecule itself. But you can't take one thing in isolation. The most prominent example of that we would all relate to is vitamin C. We all know ascorbic acid. We can find it at Walgreens or anywhere for pennies, and you get a big jar of 500 tablets at a Costco or Sam's Club. The reason for that is because that is that isolated compound of that one molecule. Your body sees that and it doesn't know what to do with it. At the worst, it sees it as neutral and it just wants to eliminate it. So now you're up against a double negative. You're spending money, you're taking vitamins, you're trying to do the right things, but your body isn't receiving the effects that you're intended for it too. That's kind of a summary of everything that we do at Biogenesis and why we developed the formula that we did, because it's a 7-in-1 therapeutic. And even though it falls under the name Think Zinc, zinc, as you can see in our last slide, is extremely necessary. It's vital. But this also has magnesium, vitamin C. People that take this after just about 3 short weeks, a lot of the feedback we get online is they can feel a lift to their energy levels. They feel a lot better. And it all comes together to where the 7 ingredients kind of amplify the effects of one another to where it's greater than the individual parts. And it's been a great success for us.
And you'd say that your product, is utilizing that whole food philosophy and synergy within the nutrients that are in there as well, right? And what made you say, hey, I need to make sure that there's cofactors within these products versus just, the chemical aspect, you put a lot more in?
Yes. Well, as far as that background, so much of my research and my work in the industry has come from places like the Weston A. Price Foundation. Dr. Wallach, who actually founded another wonderful supplement company. There's a lot of overlap and symmetry between these top companies out there you may have heard of, Standard Process. A lot of these companies will actually grow their own crops so they have full quality control. So to answer your question, I knew that cofactors were so important and vital. As a matter of fact, the reason why our product is liquid is, so first of all, it doesn't cause any gastric distress. We don't need any compression filler that you would need in a typical tablet or capsule. And beyond all of that, it allowed us to make every milligram 100% based on providing a health outcome. So what I mean by that is the liquid, it's not water. It's MCT oil from organic coconuts. It's sunflower lecithin. And sunflower lecithin is nature's #1 source that provides phospholipids. And that is the material, the building blocks that our cell's membrane, the thing that encapsulates the mitochondria, the organ, everything that goes on with the cell, that's what it's made out of. So that whole food philosophy, we are obsessed with.
In general, people would say, well, this could help with their energy.
Yes.
Could help with inflammation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hormone balance. How would you say that? Would you say it's hormone balance? Is there kind of like
Yes, oh, absolutely. Zinc is a key player when it comes to hormones for both men and women. But I did a lot of research on that because last Sunday we found out that my wife is expecting again. And now that we've kind of cracked that code and we know the nutrients that the body needs and we know the hormone levels, a lot of the research I did on Think Zinc was based around how does zinc affect the hormone balance of females and males. And just as one example, for a male, and then I'll give an example of a female. For a male, it is impossible to form, if you're looking at the sperm and in terms of motility, its ability to move, or morphology, the form and function of the sperm itself, all of that would become fragmented and completely disappear without the zinc molecule. And so that's one example. On the female side of things, they've actually done clinical trials on this, and a lot of the research they've done on these human clinical trials have shown that it's greatly reduced the symptoms of both menopause menopause, and PMS. Your average person isn't really interested in doing the research. They're not in a lab coat or in a class 3 clean suit in a laboratory putting supplements together. They want something that tastes good, it's going to be easy to take, and at the end of the day, they have that confidence of knowing that this is actually a high quality supplement. And so I just try to make it a little bit relevant and accessible to people. But like Dr. Nate talks about, it's always about spiritual, emotional, getting out in nature, enjoying sunshine, forgiveness. There's a lot that goes into that holistic health. This is just one of those key components that's going to give your cells what they need to thrive, and the rest is up to each of us individually.